So, 3, 2, 1.
Um,
Live. Sorry,
Back
everybody.
again.
Back after a two week hiatus, I guess. Was it?
Yeah, I think so. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was two
Maybe.
weeks.
Must have been.
Um, Uncle Jim was in Paris. I guess you probably can't see the background I put up. It's the Eiffel Tower. Um,
Okay.
I was in Europe. I was in Europe for about 10 days. I was in Paris, France, and then we were in Spain. We went to Valencia and Barcelona. So on this episode of the Casual Cats podcast, episode 15, we will be talking about today. We'll be kind of riffing on a couple things. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the traveling adventure I was on and what I saw on it. And then kind of talk about and lead into how many people we have on the planet. And probably a couple other things too we'll get into. But I guess me and Leaky were kind of riffing on this when I got back. But yeah, it was an interesting trip. I had never been to Europe. Um, Beautiful place. France, Paris is a beautiful place. Spain is a beautiful place. Lots of good food. The people are very interesting. There was a lot of people, which is kind of what is going to bring this like full circle on this podcast to the 8 billion people now on the planet. I was in Barcelona, which is like a kind of a port hub of Spain. A lot of cruise ships coming there. There's a lot of tourists, and I was on a bus tour, and we were coming around one of the like wealthy shopping areas in Barcelona, and I had never seen more people in one place in my entire life. Like it was a large kind of like square, like city square, um, and I was trying to estimate the other night with the guys like how many people I actually saw, but I think I came to the conclusion it was somewhere between 50 and 100,000 people on the streets. And now, like we were talking, like if you go to like a big football stadium, like in the States, like there are some football stadiums that can house like 100,000 plus people, but to see that many people on like sidewalks, like moving around in traffic, it was very jarring. Like we here are from a very small town in comparison in Atlantic Canada, and like I don't know what the population of the city we grew up in is
We
like.
have to travel out of province to see more than 1,000 people at once, basically, is
Mm-hmm.
is kind of what we're at. Like
Yeah.
maybe like a big shopping center close by on a work weekend or holiday or something like that. You might see a couple hundred of that, but we get that very rarely. I've only seen it in Montreal and Toronto. Um, those are the only two places I've really traveled. I guess we went to Florida, though Disneyland wasn't that packed when we went, but yeah, that trumps any amount of people that I've seen. That's a
Yeah.
huge crowd.
Well, yeah, we were looking up. It can hold up to 300,000 people in Disneyland.
Hmm.
So again, that is a lot of fucking people too. But yeah, I'd only ever been really kind of also within North America. I'd been to Montreal. I've been to Quebec a couple times. I've been to our Nova Scotia, Halifax is our big city center in Atlantic Canada. And then I've been down the East Coast, all the way down the East Coast from like, Maine to Florida. So New York, Washington. I've been through all those places. And then I've also been out to Southern California and Nevada and Arizona. And like Las Vegas is a very big, well, it's not a very big city. It's literally just like a tourist city, but there are a lot of people there in the streets too. And it was nothing in comparison to what we saw in Spain. Um, it was just, yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was like borderline almost like chaos when I saw that many people. It was very very crazy. But it yeah, and I think not to stay on the population topic too much. We'll kind of come back to that, but I want to talk too about like just maybe the like the benefit of traveling, because traveling is not something I've done excessively. I'm 32. We're both 32, And really, honestly, maybe I should have done more traveling at this point, because it does give you a perspective of like what the world is like and how other people live. Like, and that helps you understand probably perspectives that other people have and just where they're coming from. You know, like for
Yeah,
instance,
definitely.
yeah, like in Barcelona, just like the conditions some people live in. And we were talking the other night, me and Leaky, about like how, when you're living around that many people, like you can get pretty jaded to human interaction. And I know at one point I worked in customer service and I regularly dealt with people from all over the world. And I kept noticing, like, more than I would usually deal with people from North America more than I would from anywhere else in the world, and specifically the East Coast of North America. And I noticed the people from New York City were always just a little bit more callous. Uh, and and I'm sure not everyone from New York is there. And after you get talking to them, they're fine, but there's like an abrasiveness, and I think it's when you're around like very large population centers. I mean, the presence of another person, you just kind of become jaded to it. It was the first thing I noticed when I came back to our little town here. People were definitely more perceptive of your presence, which you could interpret as being nicer. Not that the people weren't nice where we were; they were very nice actually, considering they're all tourist spots, and people who live in tourist spots that are big population centers are usually not the friendliest, but they were all very accommodating. But yeah, I was glad to be home. you know
Yeah.
It gave me a perspective that I valued, home. But I don't think that's an uncommon thing when you travel for a week or two and you're traveling a lot and moving a lot, and it wasn't like a relaxing vacation really. It was like a get everything done, see everything, and quite tired by the end of it. And traveling in general is a fucking nightmare. I mean, it's kind of crazy that air travel's been around for, I don't know, probably like 40 years, 50 years, but like honest to Christ, I don't know how much it's improved in the last like 20 or 30. It's so uncomfortable. And I guess they can't really do anything. Like, can't make you any more comfortable when you're flying at like 600 miles an hour, 40,000 feet in the air. It's just, inevitably, it's just going to be hard on like the human system, enduring that kind of punishment. And then layovers and whatnot. Like we were traveling for 26 hours straight. We were up at 2:30 in the morning in Barcelona, and we had a layover in Lisbon. Then we flew to Toronto. That flight was 8 hours. And then we had a 6-hour layover, and we made it back to Atlantic Canada after that. And then we had delays in Toronto. So yeah, 26 hours straight, awake and traveling. It's, feels like you've been awake for like 3 days by the end of it. So, yeah, it's a very painful experience too. At least for me, I get motion sickness.
How are your ears for popping?
Oh fuck, mine were actually my partner here eardrums. She had broken blood vessels in eardrums when she returned. Apparently,
Jesus.
mine. I guess in hindsight, what I had was allergies there. But at one point on one of the flights, I thought my eardrums were gonna fucking explode. So yeah, that on top of getting motion sickness is not pleasant.
Yeah.
If I even close my eyes on a flight for a couple seconds, I'll feel sick. If I fall asleep, I'm going to be throwing up for like a day straight.
That's
So
terrible.
the 8 hour flight and the red eye getting over there overnight, I was literally just staring at the back of the seat the entire time. Well,
Jesus
thankfully
Christ.
they had some movies on that I watched the movies, but yeah, it's pretty fucking bad.
She brought some Monster Hunter Rise on the Nintendo Switch.
I actually did. I was playing it on the way over.
There you go.
That's what I was doing. I was
You
doing.
got to, yeah.
I was doing the new content that I didn't get a chance to do. But
It's
after
the
like,
only time we'll play Rise now is when the internet went out a couple days ago. I started to play a bunch of Monster Hunter Rise, had a great time. As soon as I heard that fucking ding, of the computer going like, "Oh, you're back online." I jumped right back to WoW.
Shut that thing the fuck off. Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to play with a bunch of fucking NPCs, right? I want to play with actual people.
You want to play with real people.
Yeah, and I can do that on WoW sometimes, I guess.
Well, this is the thing. If we ever want to hand deliver this fucking goat hide to these Monster Hunter devs, because we've memed for a long time. We love the Monster Hunter series. That there's some changes that need to be made, and our suggestions need to be heard. And well, the only way to do that would be to literally get a goat hide and pen out on the goat hide like everything we need. And if we hand deliver it, I think the flight to Tokyo, there's a couple different ones you can get. One of them is like, I think it's almost like 15 hours or something straight. It's just like, it's just fucking, it's a nightmare. It's from like Los Angeles to Tokyo. It's like, fuck me.
We'll add shit to the goddamn goat hide on the flight over if if we're on that long.
We could do it on the flight. Yeah, fuck. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but, but yeah, but it's, yeah, I guess it just, yeah, it just made me more appreciative of where we are here, I think. As much as I love those places, and if anybody ever ends up seeing this, it's from these places or these bigger cities. You know, there's ups and downs. You know, the food, like there's celebrities and that come and visit the cities, like musicians and other artists, like actors, and you know, there's definitely ups and downs to it. But I think ultimately, you know, I just like the peace and quiet, really. And I'm starting to realize, like, as I get older, being around those population centers, I get very nervous. It makes me nervous, and like I don't have really like any phobias. It's something like I never really had. Like there are things obviously like that make anybody nervous. Water, like deep water, was something always that kind of freaked me out. Like waves. Like I don't know, fucking maybe I lived on Atlantis, fucking 12,000 years ago, watched the fucking wave. But large groups of people definitely unnerves me. Especially getting older and getting wiser, and then, you know, being someone who's into like catastrophism, and if God forbid we ever find ourselves in even a local catastrophe in one of those bigger cities, like I'd just be so afraid, just of the panic in the people, and then even just kind of nefarious people crawling out of the woodwork, and there's just this like thin layer of, you know, I guess it's like virtue, like the people like just they aren't like raping in the streets, right? Like, but all it would take is for some kind of catastrophe to like wash that or pull that veil back, and then it's just complete anarchy. Like, and it's something, yeah.
You see it with like the looting and stuff on. I mean, like there's Katrina, but I don't think Katrina was like, it wasn't super violent. It was just like they took all the stuff, and then so people like are aware that that's how people act more so now that like we've had cell phones, cameras during like, you know, global times of unrest. So it's not crazy to think that like, you know, it gets high stakes in those fucking moments. It definitely does. And everyone's like, everyone breaks down to like, you know, is it, to what is their like priorities? And then you have, yeah, just people will certain ones will give into panic, and then they'll resort to, you know, stealing at some lower whatevers, and then perhaps like, you know, be getting violent and all that. And yeah, it's definitely something to be scared of. As far as like the claustrophobia of crowds, that could also be a thing too that you have. I don't like crowds. I can deal with them. So like I've been to like heavy MTL, and that, I think with that there's a performance going on, so like there's a tension there. I get very worried about pickpockets and stuff. So I make sure that I have all my stuff on me, and like I have like all, like I don't keep my wallet, I can probably like put my money in my shoes and shit like that, right? Like,
Jesus Christ.
but I guess I'll have anxiety about it, but I'll go to like maybe those obsessive lengths to relieve my own anxieties about that if I know I'm going to be in a big crowd. I've never found myself in a big crowd. Sounds like you're scared boy. I've never found myself in a big crowd like spontaneously, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just a foreign thing. Couple babies on here, mommy. There's too many people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's more like I think for me, because I have like an interest in psychology. I'm a more philosophically oriented person, but it's there's a lot of people out there again, yeah, who I think kind of are just kept in line by society, and they aren't like really wanting to be virtuous people inherently. They're just kind of going along with everything because like they don't want to go to jail or whatever the reason is for, you know, whatever. That's kind of what quells their impulses, their dark urges and desires, and it just, I don't know. I don't want to like try and come across like I'm like this all knowing. I this is I know this better than other people. It's like, well, I don't really, but I'm we'll talk about Jordan Peterson at some point because it's going to lead into this, but just kind of listening to him talk about people's psychology and just kind of the general state of the world too right now. Like people are kind of on edge, like with COVID, it's kind of cooped people up a little bit, like that whole
nuclear war in Ukraine.
Well, yeah, right. So it's just kind of, I don't know. And even like probably some of the Ukraine videos that obviously I don't ever want to see. Like I gotta stop going on fucking 4chan. Like I wake up with my morning coffee and I end up on fucking 4chan, and I'm just like, why do I keep coming on here? And all it is now is porn and videos of people dying in Ukraine, or people killing each other in Ukraine. Like it's fucking bad. But the reason over the years I've gone on 4chan is because it just gives you an unfiltered look at the world. And I think that is important to see. And like when you hear about the war in Ukraine, right? And this might get kind of dark for a second, but like you hear about it on the news and there's like, oh yeah, there's this war going on and there's different factions fighting against each other. But like, I don't think they ever really communicate to people the level of darkness that occurs in a war zone. And a war zone is essentially a place where like all bets are off. Like there technically for people on the ground aren't any rules. There are rules for the leaders engaged in war that they can't create a humanitarian crisis with like biological, like chemical weapons. But on the ground, like it's kind of like you kill these people and that's it. And that's kind of this scenario I'd be concerned about if there's like some kind of natural disaster in like a large city where kind of what keeps people in line is taken away. And just the videos, like, oh Christ, I saw this video and these guys, I don't know what side captured who, but I think it was the Ukrainian, I think it was the Ukrainians captured some Russian soldiers. They bound their hands. They had no pants on. They were still alive. They pulled their genitals out and they cut the genitals off with a fucking box cutter. And then they threw the genitals in their own face. Like, that is fucked. Like, that level of barbarism is going on there. And there are, I mean, obviously, like, there's worse things than that going on that haven't even, like, been communicated through video. Unfortunately, like, people going in, and this was the Russian side, like, committing mass rape of like, young people. And this is, like, a psychological thing that goes on in war too, like the psychological element of the warfare. But it's very dark, and like the news does not communicate that darkness. And that's the one, I guess, to come around to my point about 4chan was that it just communicates like an honest like picture of like what the world is really like all the good and then all the bad, like how bad it gets. And like that's how bad it gets, and that's how twisted some people are. Right? Like us versus them, they're gonna do that to somebody, knowing that those people were just drafted. Whether they're in Russia, they were literally pulled into the beds and drafted, or in Ukraine, they were like fucking bakers, and like engineers and Subway people that worked at Subway, and they got both sides got drafted in, and they're gonna do that to each other. It's like, holy fuck! Like that's why large crowds of people fucking make me uneasy, because those kinds of people are in those crowds that will do those kinds of things, and it makes me nervous seeing that many people in one place. But and then also all those poor fucking people in Korea that got like, this is getting kind of dark. This has already gotten dark for fuck's sakes. But did we talk about that like on the podcast? I don't think we have the streamer in Korea that caused like that mass death. Like they all get trapped in an alleyway. Have you heard about that?
No, actually.
Oh dear God! So in Korea, there was a influencer or a group of influencers that had, I don't know how they do it, like they airdrop or they do something on the people's phone where they say, we're going to be here at this time, come meet us. Oh, it was a Halloween festival. Sorry, I'm getting the two. Wasn't the streamer yet. I'm mixing these two things up. The streamer thing was a separate incident. Okay, so this was a Halloween festival. So like 100 people or something, I think, Terrain Beast. It was police fault. Okay, well, I think the people were also partially to blame, but they essentially did not have proper crowd control. Well, the people freaked the fuck out, and it was in an alleyway, and they got so tight together that people were suffocating and dying standing up, and then got squeezed to death in an alley because there were hundreds of thousands of people. Well, there was like, I think there was like, was there 10,000 in that alleyway or something? There's something in that alleyway. There was like 10. There was a lot of people outside the alleyway. But again, you hear about that on the news, right? You hear about that on the news. You're like, oh, fuck, that's terrible. You see videos of it. It's very different. So where the Subway let everyone out. Okay. You see a video. I was watching all the video, and again, that's a fucked up thing. Yeah, it was funneling in the city there to the festival. And that's a fucked up thing. People say, like, that's fucked up. You're watching those videos. So, like, those Russian guys, like, cutting that guy's nuts off. And that one was fucked up, honestly. But, like,
that's my bad, fan.
That's my bad.
Shouldn't be watching
that. Holy fuck.
You should turn that one off halfway through at least. But
to be fair, I didn't even know what I was watching till like the video finished. Then I was like, oh,
yeah. But I mean, sometimes with stuff like that, like you can't turn away. I remember somebody showed me a video of the cartels beheading a pedophile. There wasn't like a title or anything on the video, or not beheading, dismembering fully, and I was just, it was during a party. I was quite drunk. I was just really glad that I had the negative of the screen and I wasn't like taking the whole thing. Hard to look away though, because especially if someone's trying to share it, they're like, "Look at this cool thing I've got."
Oh my God,
that's some cool stuff.
Oh yeah, no,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun, but it gives you. It's like that was what the world was like very recently, and it's still like. And the video of this terrible incident in Korea of all these people in the alleyway getting suffocated, like it was very dark. It was like they were literally just 1 minute they were all there just getting out and everything was okay, and the next minute, like people were being crushed. There was this one video of the guy, and there was these two women just dead. They were standing up, but it was so tight they couldn't even fall down. They were just dead in the crowd, and I was like, holy, like. Oh, so like you see a big crowd
at that Travis Scott concert. He engineered that for a sacrifice to Satan.
The Illuminati. Yeah. Well, a similar thing happened with an influencer somewhere else in Asia recently. I conflated those two events, but there was another incident where an influencer caused people. I think that they got trampled in that one, and then I think it was Indonesia. There was like 130 people, or maybe more, that got trampled at a soccer game. So it's like, it's very dangerous. It can be very dangerous. Like people are dangerous. Fuck. That large groups of people are dangerous. And anyway, I don't want to make this trip sound like I was just like a paranoid fucking mess the entire time, because it wasn't. But it just made me think like I haven't seen enough of the world, right? And it's probably just a word of encouragement for people. It's super expensive to travel, and thankfully, like this was kind of a family trip I was on. But to go and see the world or see some big cities, it's probably a good thing to do. But as uncomfortable as it can be and as expensive as it can be to go. I think in hindsight, it's definitely something I should have done more of. But yeah, it's it's eye opening.
I wonder if the crowd crush thing is like a like kind of like taken for granted yeah, as like general knowledge in those big city centers. Like I wonder if they're just like if that's like a common thing, like a almost like a superstition that's passed on or something. Not like not like that's a superstition, but like they're all aware of it, and so then someone from like where we're at goes in there, and it's just like holy fuck, we don't know how to. Just like that concern pops up. It's just like, oh fuck, what do we do?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there's always been big city centers, and we were talking about this last night or the night before. But I was like, is it a good idea to have cities that have like these kinds of populations? Like objectively, like if you were the king of planet Earth, or you were somebody who was like trying to reorganize things for like a better world, like is it a good idea to have that many people crammed into an area? And like obviously people end up, and you would talk about, I think you said, well, it's just something that naturally happens, right? Like people kind of gravitate towards.
Yeah, it's because of the specializations
Right.
that we take on to like supply society with the stuff that it needs, and then you have the Adam Smith's invisible hand, kind of making things pop up in the way that they do. So you have people wanting to live close because travel takes time, and if you need something from a specialist, then you want it to take a little bit less time, and then from that you have the hand incorporating public travel or accessible means of travel, i.e., automobiles, bicycles, public transportation, subways, etc. And then you just get clusters of people developing. I think like if we had like teleportation where like an artisan could create something and then hit a button and send it like halfway across the world, it'd probably be ideal to give people as much space as we could to spread out as far. I mean, that's
Yeah.
depending on how our lifestyle is, because there's going to be environmental effects on that as well. But you know, hopefully if we have teleportation, we've kind of figured out that you know, we're up to that first level civilization or whatever, where we're not burning our own planet down.
We've evolved.
You know, yeah.
But it's how quickly things can devolve. And like again, I'm not like a complete pessimist. I'm definitely on the spectrum leaning towards pessimism from like optimism. But you know, we just have never been in this situation before. I think as a culture, like I don't know how many fucking people were like in Rome back in the day. That's a good question. Like how many people? Let's just Google that right now. Population of Rome at peak. Let's see. 1 million back in 100 AD.
Really?
So that was still a lot of fucking people back then. That's no fucking joke. Like,
Yeah.
you know. But if we today though, like we're in a different situation today, and I've heard a lot of these. I mean, if you go on YouTube and type in prepper and watch one video, you'll be recommended these videos for the next 5 months. But there's a lot of these fucking guys fortunately, unfortunately, have come across. Some of them are quite good, but they're just going over like how unprepared our global culture is. And that's something you realize traveling, like especially in the West, we're kind of one culture. Like it's different languages, but pretty much the fucking same. Like everybody, I had a Rick and Morty shirt on, and like, you know, I could tell everyone was looking at it. Like we're all kind of one Western culture, and you can probably extrapolate it honestly into like we're kind of a global culture at this point, but we're really disconnected from, you know, for instance, like food production. Most people don't know how to farm. If they were left out in the wild, they would starve instantly. Well, not instantly, but they would be without. They would be without the tools necessary to survive at all. So if something were to happen, like catastrophically in an area, in these large, I mean, essentially what happened, let's say New York City, we use pick on New York City's example because it's one of the biggest cities behind Tokyo, and it's on an island, so which makes it even worse. If something really bad were to happen in New York City, let's say a wave hits them, let's say there's a big earthquake in the New Madrid fault line, and a rip occurs in the Atlantic Ridge that divides North America and Europe, and a wave gets splashed back, and it washes over New York City, which is already like bordering on like flooding because of rising water levels. And it kind of destroys some bridges. Nobody can get in, decimates the area. And we have another kind of catastrophe up along the East Coast where they can't get food, water, anything in the city for like a couple months. You would probably see things devolve there to the point that like it would be scary. Like I would assume cannibalism would probably become a norm, and you would have gangs of cannibals driving around eating people. It would
Just,
become
right off the bat.
It would
Just, like,
become
right off the bat.
Yeah,
They're like binoculars to see like the tidal wave. Okay, like
Time
let's
to
get
eat.
some books here. Let's get some recipes. Like
Time to feast. Yeah. But well, I think it would not be far off because like I mean you can go, how long can you go without food? You can go with water. You can only go without for a couple days, like
and
3
Lex
or 4
Friedman
days.
said he fasted for 3 days. Like when I was watching that Destiny.
Water or food?
He said he fasted. Yeah, he fasted food for 3 days.
Food. Oh, okay.
That's got to be the upper limit. Like
no. I think you can go without food for 3 weeks.
Oh, 3 weeks.
3 weeks or a month. You can't go without water for more than 3 days.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But food
I did
can
20.
go a bunch.
I did like 20 hours without food, and I was gonna die. I did
Holy
I did the Christian Bale, just the apple or
Yeah.
yogurt, but I did both, and I was like, oh my Christ, I couldn't make it like to the end of my shift. I had to fucking.
So you be on the cannibal crew, fucking first one, 2 days with no food. All right, like who's got the most marbling?
I know who does.
Yeah.
I know a nutritious fella.
Oh, there you go. Spending all that money on that quality beef. He's got that good meat on those legs. His legs can use a little bit of work, honestly, a little bit more meat. But anyway, yeah. Well, I think that's what would happen. Not that I'm an expert, but I could foresee that would probably happen pretty quickly. Just because, again, in those cities, like there's a privilege that comes with living in a place like that too, where like again, a lot of people just again their survival skills would be pretty much nil. And you're in the dangerous spot. You get a lot of fucking people, a lot of criminals too. So anyway, yeah. Let's hope the Christ said doesn't happen, obviously. But just a theoretical scenario. But you know, with climate change and whatnot ongoing, who knows? Anything's possible. I was watching a video. I linked it to Leaky. I don't know. It's kind of a boring video, honestly. I don't know if I really want to play it here on the podcast / stream ongoing. But Jordan Peterson had a guy on his YouTube channel who is on. He is some kind of think tank in Denmark regarding climate change and like approaching climate change in like a logical way and like not turning it into a cult. And he's encouraging nations to like realistically cut back their carbon like footprint. And a lot of the goals that have been implemented, they've had these think tanks and they've run a lot of they've run the data and it doesn't make any sense. Like Joe Biden had announced by 2050, they essentially want to have like no carbon footprint whatsoever. They don't want to have any gasoline combustion engines on the road. And I'm trying to remember what he said exactly, but if they were to do that, the impact that it would have on not just the economy, but the environment would actually be really bad because you'd have to create an alternative energy source to supplement all of the electric cars in the road. And they didn't touch on this, but I've heard as in the customer service industry, I was working with cars for some time.
Like lithium or whatever.
Yeah, the lithium, the shortage.
The batteries.
You're not going to be able to supply every person who has a car right now on Earth with an electric vehicle. It's going to be fucking impossible. Unless we want to go start mining asteroids. It's just not going to be possible. And the problem with that, this is a really good point that they brought up, right? Again, these are smart fucking guys. With like good insights into these kinds of complicated topics that politicians don't have. They said that if you were to start phasing out like gasoline, like combustion engines, and replace them with electric engines, right? What's going to happen to the price of oil, right? It's not going to be as it's not going to be as used frequently. What it's going to do is it's going to fuck up like the oil market, and it's probably going to make oil more expensive, right? It's gonna fuck up the need for it, and by doing that, you have to ask yourself, and they didn't necessarily tie this point into it, but what is mining all of the lithium? It's not big electric fucking drills. It's fucking oil powered giant fucking, drills and giant cranes and giant dump trucks pulling all this stuff out of the earth, right?
Hmm.
So it's going to make that process more expensive, and it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the global economy that's going to create a massive fucking problem. And, essentially by the end of this video, just to summarize it, they were kind of saying like, this is insanity. And he pulled up a quote that is from Einstein. Not from Einstein. It's usually associated with Einstein, but I forget what it is exactly. But it's a quote where essentially, if you keep doing something and you keep getting a bad result, like, and you keep doing it, that's insanity. Like, you know what I mean? Like it, and they were saying that the world leaders going this route, like they're essentially going to destroy the global economy. And Jordan Peterson and this guy are like, well, we gotta try and convince some world leaders not to do this. And I see where they're coming from. Obviously, being a more conspiratorial person, is that is that just stupidity? There's another quote I can't quite remember either, but it's something like, well, that's kind of naivety, I guess. Is it stupid, or is it a nefarious act? So the stupid act, or is it nefarious act? Are they just being stupid with this, or is there intention behind driving the global economy to this point? What's that going to do? Food production. What did COVID do to a lot of the food production? Why were there all of these? I just saw an ad show up in my feed here while I was watching the video about there was a bunch of fires in food processing plants. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember we were talking about that? A bunch of mysterious fires were like going off in the States at these meat processing plants.
Maybe.
I posted that in the Discord a couple months ago.
Yeah, I might have glanced at it.
Yeah. Kind of weird, and then all the rhetoric from the World Economic Forum that we need to eat the bugs, right? Stop eating the meat, eat the bugs. So they're trying to get people on a more sustainable, food, and then they're kind of pushing the global economy to the brink. The virus pushed the global economy to the brink. Climate bullshit. Canada too, also with the Alberta's oil reserves, like the federal government's being ridiculous with climate laws that are preventing them from, I think mining to the degree they could, and also exporting the oil to where it needs to go, due to greenhouse gas emissions. They're worried about like the CO2, like the carbon footprint, which again is like kind of just woo-woo nonsense, honestly, tied to the climate data. And that's a whole nother conversation. We don't ramble too much about this, but again, yeah, it's just generally a big mess, I guess. And we get 8 billion people on this planet. There's a lot of fucking people, and I don't know. Good on Jordan and this guy trying to reach out to the world leaders to try and get them to have to use some common sense. But I guess to end my point on this, I tend to think that there's probably more to it than just naivety. There's probably some nefarious elements ongoing within the climate change forum. So, but yeah,
Did seeing all those people change your opinion on wearing masks for COVID?
Oh my god. Well, no one was wearing masks.
No one's wearing a mask.
Literally, no. I can't not remember. People in the planes, even the people in the planes weren't really. But I don't think I saw one person wear a mask on the street
Jesus.
there. Maybe like an old person once, but like nobody. Yeah. So if we
Jeez.
pandemic 2.0, here we come,
Yeah.
right? We just got someone's already fucking probably got bat soup going again, right? Is that how it started, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Big bet.
Right. That's how it started. Yeah. So the official narrative. So if it was intentional, it didn't work the first time. God damn it, it's 100% gonna work the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time, till the intended outcome is met. So,
Yeah.
fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But yeah, I was kind of fucking worried about monkeypox over there a little bit, but I think we're out of the woods on that one. So. But it did make me look. I was washing my hands though. I washed my hands quite a bit, honestly. Like I'm still a little bit conditioned. I mean, it wasn't my mind. Obviously, on a trip, you don't want to get COVID. Like, obviously, it's a real fucking virus. Like, it'll put you out on your ass for a week or two, minimum. So, but no, I never wore a mask anywhere. Neither did anybody else. So, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, they did all that hard work trying to tell people, just like this stuff spreads really easy. Nope.
Well,
I don't
I guess not though, right? Well, that's the thing, right? Because like I don't think I don't have COVID. I'm not sick.
know.
And we were around a lot of people, on public transit, walking around the streets in big malls. It was in all these different bathrooms, like at malls, at restaurants, at airports, right? Pearson in Toronto is a huge fucking airport. It's one of the biggest airports in the world. Um, no COVID. I mean,
Mm.
I don't know if I even heard about COVID going around. I've heard there's like flus going around, like stomach flus, but I haven't really heard about
Yeah.
COVID going around. Like it has kind of just fucked off. Like,
They should stop telling people. Still getting COVID deaths?
yeah, I haven't heard about it. I don't know. I'm sure people are dying from it, but I feel like it just kind of is out of style right now. We're waiting for the new COVID to come in style. We're waiting for COVID 2.0, right?
Daily COVID deaths in Canada. New cases and deaths. Canada, January 2nd, November 16th. Deaths 98, 7-day average 61. November deaths. How is.
All of Canada, there was fucking.
Oh, this is all time cases and death. No, it says Canada, 1 year. 7-day average. What's this big spike here? 257. 7-day average 53. September 15th. September 21st, 34 deaths. Oh, only one death on the 24th. Oh, wait, no, maybe 25th.
In all
September
of Canada?
25th only had one death in all of
Oh,
Canada 2022.
God, I'm so glad we all locked down to get on top of it.
It is crazy. Then we get 2 deaths the next day on the 26th. 27th we had 27 deaths.
We should Google
like-
how many people die in Canada every day eating peanut butter.
I don't know. Cases here. Cases are down. New cases 2,515. Fucking for November 16th. All-time cases and deaths 4.41 million. Total deaths 47,000. So that must be just Canada. Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy that it goes. We still have hundreds of people dying per day sometimes, some days, and yet it's not talking about it at all. They're like, it really doesn't care. Jeez. Oh, that's cases. 1 second. Like, what's one of these spikes here? Fucking 153, November 10th. But they're just like, yeah, no, it's not making money anymore, so these lives don't really matter. Talked about COVID a lot. It's just making people upset now. We'll just let them die, I guess. Or is it like we want people to forget about this so that Like, I don't know, 257 September 15th. It's just all across Canada, I guess, maybe. If it was like 200 people in New Brunswick, 200 people in fucking Ottawa, 2,000 people in Ottawa, maybe. 6,000 people hospitalized all through November, October, 5,000, September, 4,000. People in ICU, 200. Yeah, we basically got a steady 200 people in the ICU. Oh, February 4th was bad. Or Jan 25th, 10,000 people in the hospital, 1,200 in the ICU. But yet we never hear anything about it.
No,
They don't tell us anymore to stop the things. What's the most recent thing they were talking about? Well, we were talking about the Bill C-11.
Yeah.
I haven't kept up on that.
Well, we just hope to God that didn't pass, I guess.
Yeah.
Just fingers crossed. I mean, we didn't call our local representative,
No.
but we're just gonna hope that it doesn't happen, and that's what we do here, I guess. I guess. Oh my. I guess in other news too, relevant to this maybe a little bit, is Trump was running for office now. He made his bid to run for president.
Yep.
So it should be interesting. Maybe last time he was president, COVID came. Maybe next time he's president, it'll get all round 2 when he's in again, right? The Illuminati wants him out. They got him out. They're gonna get him out again. That's when they're fucking have it won't be bat soup. It'll be I don't know, crow soup or something, fucking pigeon soup, something like that. Rat soup, maybe over there. Black plague. I'll kick it up a notch. So yes, fucking sir. Yes.
Bill was reintroduced in February 2022 as the Online Streaming Act on February 2nd, and apparently this says it's now law, but that's C15. C11 sets a broadcasting policy. I don't know. I don't remember when they're reviewing it. But whatever. We'll just go a little more Canadian. We'll put some maple syrup in our tea, and we'll have an igloo around us, and we'll have hockey sticks with a hockey tape and a hockey puck there, bud. Tell you all about the waves and the deer outside. We'll go fishing. We'll watch some Red Green. React to some proper Canadian content for y'all, and that'll give our rightful spot in the algorithm. Long live Trudeau, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
Your second, third term doesn't fucking matter, bud. However many you want. I'm sure you'll do that. And fuck.
Just take it. Just take it like your father, your real father did. Or whatever people say. Fidel Castro, right?
We'll keep all the trucks parked where they're supposed to be parked. We won't be bothering them. We're really sorry about all that mischief,
Yeah.
Really fucking sorry about that mischief.
My God. Yeah. Well, public beheadings in Canada in no time. Or no dictator. I noticed, speaking of a lot of people, the Chinese, is he the prime minister or the president? I don't know. Anyway, Xi, he was grilling Trudeau, I guess, publicly, because the Canadian federal government leaked details of their meeting to the Canadian press, and it was a private meeting. And so in front of everybody at like this conference, like G20 conference, Xi like kind of grilled Trudeau and was asking him like, what were you thinking? Like, why did you do that? And I was like, oh God, not that like the Z guy's anyone to talk. Like China's kind of a fucked place right now. Like that guy's like a literal dictator. His party, like, but yeah, fucking, bruh. Yeah.
What was the city with the most people? Was it Taiwan or
Tokyo.
Hong Kong?
Tokyo, 37 million people.
Jesus. That's Japan. That's a tiny ass spot.
Yeah.
Tiny ass spot, right?
Yeah, I think Japan has, it's a lot of people in Japan. I think it's like 100 million. 125 million people on that island. Mother of God. Russia's got 143 million. That's a lot too, actually.
Mm.
How big is Japan? Like, that is versus Canada size.
It's it's got to be like 5% or something, right? Let me get a world map so I can, because maybe I'm just like remembering what it looks like.
Well, yeah. So Japan would fit into Ontario and Quebec, the size of it. But yeah, it's 26 times the size of Japan, Canada. But when they say that, like, I'm seeing the size of Canada here, and like probably 3/4 of it isn't livable.
True. Yeah.
So it's the lower like quarter that's livable, which would then kind of put them a little bit closer together. But yes, still about 26 times, but it's probably like 10 times the size, honestly, livable area of Japan.
Yeah.
But
As Canadians too, if anyone's curious, we don't actually think about that. We don't think about the north.
no,
It's Yukon and the Northwest Territories and in Nunavut. And that's just it. There's like what seal? There's like seals that live up there.
Seals, polar bears, elk,
caribou.
I think it's caribou up there. Yeah,
caribou up there.
Yeah, there's some birds. And
never ventured. We never ventured. There could be any number of Area 51-esque like Canadian like places up there probably.
They probably have. That's probably where they put it. Yeah, it's in the Arctic Circle. Yeah, I mean,
again. No, I won't say that, but like, how are the Inuit doing? How are they doing? They weren't doing well last time.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, talk about expensive food prices. Holy Christ! Someone told me, how much was it? It was like ridiculous. It was like a bag of peas was like $26. It's like $2 here. Like the food costs up there are ridiculous because everything has to be flown in. And then they were giving them shit for going and still hunting the whales, and like they would kill the whales and take the blubber and stuff. And it's like a ritual ceremonial thing they've done for thousands of years, and they were kind of giving them shit on it. It's like, no, eat your $26 frozen peas. You got to live off of the Canadian diet now, right? Live off the white man's diet.
So it's 1% of Canada's population lives in the territories, and that it's 48% of the total land area. There's the near north, and then there's the far north. So north of the tree line, barren grounds and tundra. Subgroups of the Inuit live up there, unrelated to other indigenous peoples in Canada. They're people who traditionally relied mostly on hunting marine mammals and caribou. So that's like far north, and then your near north, subarctic, mostly synonymous with Canadian boreal forests, large areas of evergreen, dominated forest with subarctic climate. This area has traditionally been home to indigenous peoples of the subarctic, that is, First Nations who were hunters of moose, freshwater fishers, and trappers of the region. So, lot of wilderness, and then a lot of cold. You go back. I don't want to say you go back like X amount of 100 years, but you go back 50. I would say you probably go back 50, minus the cell phones and the internet. But yeah,
it would be pretty brutal living. I'm looking at a map here of Africa. These are all the countries that would fit in Africa: the United States, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Eastern Europe, India, China, and Japan, and the UK would all fit within Africa. That's how big Africa is. It's fucking huge. And that's crazy because that's like, as opposed to Canada, where much of it isn't livable. Like, well, Africa's a lot of like barren areas, like desert areas, but a little bit different. But I think some of the northern parts are livable. There was an episode on, was it Ancient Aliens? But there was an episode on Ancient Aliens about about there's a place in northwestern Canada. I don't know which territory that is, but it's the Yukon or what? But
I think that's the Northwest Territories. I think.
Northwest Territories. Sorry, yeah, you're right. It is. Oh, there's is it Yellowknife?
I forgot about Yellowknife.
I think Yellowknife is actually where it was found, but
Okay.
it's like bordering on Alaska, but it's this like crazy like place that the glaciers used to sit on top of, and it was this like magical land, and these explorers would go up there, and back in the I don't know the 19th century, early 20th century, and they said they found all these weird creatures. I think they saw a dinosaur, and like all these people were going up there at one time. It was like a whole meme around this time period, whenever it was. I think it was in the early like 1900s, and they kept going up there, and they kept dying. Though all these people were going missing because it's like such deep wilderness. I wish you could find what the national. It's a national park in Canada, but I don't think I'd be able to find it. National Park Canada. People go missing.
Oh man, Yellowknife's a city. They get buildings and stuff. Yeah, Yellowknife's got buildings. The fuck?
Yeah, buildings. Yeah.
I thought we were going back ages. No, it looks. I mean, it looks like the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
Only 40,000 people or something.
Sorry, I think I fucked up. Is that Yellowknife there?
You're
No,
quit.
that's Cameron Falls. Oh, it might be the Natichoco National Park Reserve, or is that not it?
Iqaluit. I don't know how to pronounce the Nunavut's.
Iqaluit.
Iqaluit. All right. Iqaluit looks a little shabby. a little shabby.
Ivavik National Park. Yeah, some of these fucking places are like actually insane, but you can't. They're so remote, like you can't get to them. Like, oh man, that looks nuts. It's beautiful. All right, sure. Here, I'll put a. Can I put a picture up of this?
Landscape in Nunavut.
Just a second. YouTube.
Like Assassin's Creed 3. If anyone's ever played Assassin's Creed 3, that's kind of like what Nunavut in the Northern Territories. Or if there's any time where Alaska doesn't get snow, that'll look like it too.
Yeah, like that. It's a pretty beautiful place. Crazy mountaintops. Literally no one.
Yeah,
Literally
untouched
no.
for the most part too. I would expect.
Yeah, I mean,
Except for the I guess there was a gold rush in the Klondike Gold Rush 76, 66, whenever. So maybe a little bit of trampling, but
well, this is the thing about global warming. Like everyone's bitching about global warming, and like yes, sea levels will rise, but all of those areas in northern Canada would become livable. Like if it really warmed, like I don't even know. You'd have to have somebody on here like an actual climatologist, but that area that I just mentioned, that national park, Ivavik National Park in the Northwest Territories, it's at the most northern tip of Canada, and maybe it would end up being like where we are right now in Atlantic Canada in terms of like warmth. Who knows? Like it could be very livable. There's lots of grass up there. There's tons of grassland. It's just the winters are a bitch there. But I don't think the winters are even that bad either. I seem to recall watching something where like it's cold, but it's not. The last like 10 years, it has actually been kind of warm.
Grizzly bears, nope. You don't know. Not going to Yukon. Fuck that.
No.
Never.
Well, they'll probably die out. They'll probably die out with the global
never.
warming.
I think of grizzly and black bears. That's why no one lives up there, because the fucking grizzlies. I don't know if you've seen that movie Remnant with fucking Leonardo, where they have the like live bear attack or whatever.
I actually haven't, no, but I've heard of it. Yeah, I think I've seen a bear attack on YouTube though. Yeah, tears them apart. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. Let's talk about like things to be worried about. Yeah, running into a bear in the woods. It's like manic or fucking rabid. It'd be a pretty shitty way to go. You're
just
pretty.
or just has cubs.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Yukon moose. I have never seen a moose up close, living. Um, but I know they're big. I know it. I've been told.
I've seen a couple running on the road where we live, but I feel like the ones out like in the more northern areas are bigger probably. Where we
I guess
live,
I've seen one. I've seen one from like fucking 50 yards away or something. I guess.
yeah, yeah, that's as
Can't. But
close as I've seen one too probably. So, um,
never seen a muskox.
where are you reading this? The
This is just in the Eviak National Park wiki. It's just like on the shore of Beth. Oh my God, how do you pronounce this? Beaufort, Baufort. It's a French word, but I forget how they pronounce it. But yeah, it just says there is abundant game for Yukon wolves, grizzly bears, and black bears, and have the area. Other animals that inhabit this park: two species of fox, Yukon moose, lemmings, Dall sheep, which are basically a ram, mountain goat, Grier falcons, which is like a white falcon, muskox, muskoxen, wolverines, and yeah, lots of stuff to fuck you up pretty good. The bears don't do it. Fox will steal your food when you're sleeping, but foxes are kind of friendly. The moose will antler you. My father was chased up a tree by a moose. He hunts and stuff. They like, they're not, they're not like deer or what. Like, I mean, people. There's this guy who does like animal TikToks or YouTubes or whatever, and he says very accurately the moose has more in common with an elephant than it does a deer. Um, but he chased my dad up the tree, and my dad like broke off branches and threw it down at him to try to like get him to go away, and it would like hop and dodge the branches like a dog, and it was almost like it was a young moose. It was almost like it was playing, but yeah,
wouldn't want to play with it.
no, not really.
Be a bad time.
Yeah, a deer kick would really do some damage and kick your guts open pretty quick, but a moose like
Moose kick, you'd be fucking
fuck.
snap you right in half.
Kick your head right the fuck off. They kick the tires off your car if they wanted to, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, that's Northern Canada. I mean, there's lots of space up there. People could spread out for generations, I'm sure. We just have to worry about this that climate, and then I guess wildlife control and stuff. Got tons of space. Tons of
Yeah,
space. No
well,
need for people to be all cooped up in Spain. Immigrate.
Well, I mean, it's fucking beautiful. Like, I was going through some photos on here, like, of what these places. This is a national park. This is Mount Asgard. Interesting, is what they call it. That's what they call it. It's in. I will not be able to pronounce this. Uituk National Park in Nunavut, which is way northwest of where we are, like way up, almost bordering on Greenland. But it's a pretty crazy fucking spot. Lots of cool photos actually. But I mean, this is the thing. Like when we get like, if we were ever kind of to create some kind of like like a sustainable living, like we were able to just kind of like live without the use of fossil fuels, and we found like some perpetual motion machine or whatever the fuck they want to create. You get up there, like get a little hot heat, you have a little greenhouse. Like it's the power of like, if we were able to just figure out some kind of more efficient like engine, some efficient way to create energy, you could go up there and you could literally just run that shit. Maybe a mini portable nuclear reactor, I don't fucking know. But you could have a greenhouse, a house, heat. You could have you could live right in the water. You could have a little mini desalination plant to get your water. You could grow your vegetables. Hunt all the bears out of extinction up there, or into extinction. Yeah,
trap them with Tim Hortons.
There you go.
Timbits.
Some fucking Timbits. Yeah.
Timbits and coffee filters.
There you go. Their favorite. So yeah, you could do that. That'd be fucking interesting. But But yeah, that's
Now, where was Graham Hancock talking about that when the glaciers melted and the ice age and there was that huge flood? It was northern Canada, wasn't it? It was on that Ancient Apocalypse thing on Netflix. I think it was right. It must have been up here, like just south of Greenland on the southwest coast, and then this big fucking like where all of the land is broken up. It must have been somewhere around there, and then you've got like one of these islands or something, wherever it um, is all wavy, like where all the water kind of like took all the land away and like left these giant, like massive,
yeah, meltwater like pulses.
yeah,
Well, I guess that's not exactly. Never mind. Well, the meltwater pulses are what they found in the Greenland ice core, but yeah, it was over. It was a North American ice sheet. So over North America, we used to have. Actually, just let me get a map up here of North America. America map. Pull up a nice big one here. That's easy to. Oh no, I didn't want to zoom in. I'll pull this up here and we'll do this. So, yeah, I'm just gonna get this up because people will be able to see it. Okay, so here's North America. Casual Cats map. There we go. All right, so here's North America. So North America was covered from the I didn't do that. Whoopsie daisy. There we go. From essentially draw a line through the half of the United States, so everything north of like New York, all the way up to Greenland was covered in ice. There was a massive ice sheet over all of North America, and also that ice sheet too, I think, extended over Europe as well. And what they think happened 12,800 years ago was that there was a giant comet impact that struck the ice sheet somewhere, I think, around Hudson Bay, maybe. But it hit the ice sheet and it vaporized a large part of the ice sheet almost instantly, which threw a lot of material up into the atmosphere, and the impact broke through the ice sheet and actually created a bunch of like nanodiamonds and like melted quartz and et cetera, and then that triggered a warming in the climate, and the ice sheet rapidly over 1,000 years melted, and there were massive floods because of that. So and it kind of there was one giant flood that occurred at some point, and Graham points to that. Randall Carlson touches on that. It's hard to say when, but Graham points to in his series, if anyone's seen it, called what is it called again? Apocalypse.
It's called Ancient Apocalypse. It's on Netflix now.
Yeah. So his whole shtick is that there is without a doubt a memory of a flood in like our human conscious, or like the human like global consciousness. Holy fuck my brain. It's that we went through a deluge. In almost all ancient cultures, there's a story of a deluge. So there was at one point a global flood that occurred. And it must have happened. But this is the thing. So Randall Carlson will say, well, it kind of goes in steps and stages. So like the scientists, some more, I guess, mainstream scientists would say that, well, yeah, it looks like there was a rise in sea level. The rise in sea level occurred over 1,000 or 2,000 years. Randall Carlson will say it probably happened in a couple stages, but at one point in those stages, it must have been catastrophic, because what's imparted from all of these ancient cultures is one night there was a giant flood that affected like Mexico, the Mediterranean, probably areas of North America where some Native Americans lived, China. Like it literally affected almost probably every corner of the planet. So it must have been some giant release of water that occurred. Now, this is where you can kind of debate them on the point. So this is called the Younger Dryas impact theory, that during the Younger Dryas, which the Younger Dryas is a flower that only grows in cold climates, and the Younger Dryas impact theory is that during the end of the last ice age, yes, this comet hit, and then it caused a massive rise in the global sea levels due to the displacement of this ice off the North American continent. Now, there's another theory as to how this might have happened. Now, this theory is way more woo. But, and I mean, Graham, I don't know if he touches on this at all, but there's a theory that what actually happened was something else caused the Antarctic ice sheet to displace and crash into the ocean. And the crashing into the ocean of the Antarctic ice sheet into the Indian Ocean caused a massive wave that rippled up from the Indian Ocean up onto the east coast of the African continent, up through kind of the Nile River. And then it also made its way over to the South and North American continent as well. And that is what caused the deluge stories to occur. Maybe there was a comet impact. Now, personally, like my opinion, I mean, I've given this talk before on this podcast about what I think actually was to do with this. Maybe there was a comet impact. If you look at some of the meltwater pulse data on the Greenland ice cores, it appears like there were these like melt pulses that occurred 12,800 and 11,000, but some of that data is kind of hard. It can be interpreted a couple different ways. I don't know. You could also make an argument that looks like there's a 3,600 year time signature in meltwater pulse data, which then might allude to something else causing this periodic flooding. And it wasn't necessarily a comet impact, as Graham Hancock goes through, and Randall Carlson as well touches on. There's a lot of like symbology thrown in ancient history about like comets causing and being heralds of destruction, and also comets being associated with serpents, and serpents being associated with comets. And I have my own argument that I think it's not, in fact, referring to a comet stream. Well, it is, I guess, a comet stream, but not the Taurid meteor stream that they claim, but that it's actually due to another planet in our solar system that periodically brings trash into the inner solar system and then pelts the Earth. And maybe, I mean, this is like the woo side of it. People have claimed maybe it might affect the Earth in some way, whether it's geomagnetically or even physically interact, like gravitationally interacts with the Earth. That one is a little bit more far out. That would involve physics that I don't think we really understand yet, if that's the case. But yeah, that's essentially Graham's deal, that the comet, that's where he's came from. In Fingerprints of the Gods, he had theorized about a pole shift, which the pole shift theory came from Charles Hapgood back in the 50s. He knew Albert Einstein as well, and they had worked on that theory. I think Einstein, I don't know if he wrote a foreword in his book, but he had commented on that it might be a plausible explanation as to like some of the anomalies that Hapgood was seeing, but a lot of people have thrown it out since then, so I don't know. But actually, an aside to anybody that's watched that ancient Apocalypse series, I'm halfway through it, I think, or maybe 3/4 of the way through it now. But his term, a species with amnesia, that's actually a Velikovskyan term. He pulled that from Velikovsky. Velikovsky thought we were a species with amnesia, that we were a species that had forgotten a traumatic episode. And that we subconsciously have like suppressed that because it was so traumatic. And Velikovsky thought too that around that same time period, because it's a popular theory, they're in the deluge being set around 12,000 years ago. And it's set around that time usually because Plato's story of Atlantis theoretically takes place around 11,600 years ago, the flooding and destruction of Atlantis. And that also coincides with these flood myths. Velikovsky had that to say about that we were a species with amnesia. And that's kind of where I think Graham had mentioned on a podcast that that's where he had borrowed it from. I think, but that is a Velikovskian term. So yes, this is a topic that I. Oh, thank God you're back, Train Beast. Yes. Yeah. It was good. So what did you think of it, Leaky? As you're not an outsider to this information per se, but I mean, because we've talked about stuff relating to this. But what did you think of the series? I guess.
It does a really good job at presenting the elements that the elements of our archaeological findings as people that he believes needs a second look. I think he did a good job in sticking to that, and what I mean by that is he had like endless opportunities to point the finger at the academics who don't see value in unraveling the certain mysteries that he brings up, and so he didn't do that. So there was no reason for me to think, or rather, it gave me the impression that it's what he believes is right to express that these the Serpent Mound, the Gobekli Temple, what is it?
Gobekli Tepe, yeah.
Gobekli Tepe, the ones in Peru, all these things where we've discovered them, but then we've kind of just stopped in our venture to fully explain their existence. And yeah, there's just there appears to be some incongruencies with how we see our history, typically or specifically involving around what we believe people were, like how accomplished humankind was during the Ice Age, or prior to it, I guess would be really.
Yes, yeah.
I was very convinced by the end of it that there was some sort of flood. I mean, we've got the Noah's Ark sort of story in the modern day myths of it. Then we have the Mesopotamian reference of the flood. Then you had a number of other ones or whatever, and then you just have like physical evidence of just water moving in great amounts across the land, and then you get certain datings of Pillar 42 was pretty crazy. Pillar 42 is basically a hunk of stone that suggests that they knew what date it was where they were in their own history. They did via the star constellation movements. The thing that's weird though is the constellations that weren't visible at the time, they were actually like they were placed at the top of the pillar to show that they were like if it's like a clock that we can only see one half of, that they were on the other side of the clock, the dark side of the clock or whatever.
Right.
When the night sky is like the clock. So it showed that they had a vast understanding of this, or whoever made the pillar, or they were granted a vast understanding or whatever. But definitely something that like we can't just sit here and say that they were just borderline Neanderthals around the Ice Age period anymore. Like Gobekli Tepe. Now, I assumed this, so I could be corrected on this point. But what he said in the thing was that Gobekli probably did not
Göbekli
have
Tepe. Yeah,
Tepe. Yeah, sorry, I keep thinking temple.
Temple. Yeah, it kind of.
Göbekli Tepe did not have signs of agricultural development around the area. So I'm assuming that, like, that's what I'm assuming, because what he said
Yes, that's correct.
is yes, because what he said was like you get the temple is created, and then around it you have the agricultural development happening with no trace of any trial and error of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's literally like right after the fucking ice age, right at as soon as it was livable, people start building and farming, and that seems far fetched from a belief where it's like we're just a bunch of stupid tribal hunter gatherers that this and that. There's this level of organization. I mean, I think like when we think about cavemen, we probably overlook how much organization their society would have to really have for them to be like, you know, effective, right? Because if everyone is acting as an individual and just kind of doing whatever, and one one guy wants to draw, one guy really likes drawing the stick men on the fucking walls, but he's not doing enough to pull his weight. Like there's going to be some sort of organized. Yeah, it might seem primal, but it might have seemed chimp like or whatever, but it would definitely be some sort of order that they would present. And so we think to build something to come together as a team of like shaping stone, moving the stone, it's physical power, which sure, slaves, yeah, let's do it. Everyone has the ability to enslave another person, I guess, back then when there's no physical rights written down or whatever. So they say they move them by slavery. How did they learn how to cut them? How did they learn how to measure them? And where the ergonomical knowledge, not ergonomical, where the knowledge of farming and stuff come from.
Well,
it came from that half fish man that came out of the fucking water. Whatever his name was.
He's on a lot of cylinder seals, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, when I was in Paris, I got the opportunity to go to the Louvre and see a lot of these Mesopotamian cylinder seals that I've spoken about before on here, and I have a great interest in. And one of them had the fish garb. I forget what his name is, but there's a couple different names for him. But yeah, Graham Hancock had mentioned him in his series. He was one of the bringers of knowledge to people. But yeah, on one of those pillars, actually, an interesting feature of it was that there are reliefs. Like, so essentially what they did with the pillar was like there's like a crocodile or like a lizard that's on the pillar, but it wasn't something that like cut out and put on the pillar. They cut the pillar around it. And they did that with some of the other objects on the pillars. So they shaped the entire pillar. And while shaping it, shaped out a reptile on the pillar, which is like a whole different level of cutting stone, right? Like, how the fuck did they do that? You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to carve something into a stone, but to relieve something like cutting the stone away, like that takes a lot more, like that takes a much bigger skill set. I think that's quite clearly implying that there was like quite a serious level of advancement there. And that's not even to take into account, this is a problem with this problem, and I think Graham maybe has mentioned this before, but I've mentioned it too. It's very difficult for any one human mind to comprehend the enormity of like the scale of this problem. Like, it doesn't matter if you went to school for 7 years and you're an archaeologist or a geologist or you're a philosopher or whatever. It requires a long period of time to digest this information, right? For anyone. Maybe experts may be able to pick up naturally on some of the patterns involved in this better than others and recognize patterns of city building in an area that we would not. But just to the perception that's required to like take all of this and put it together. Graham's done a brilliant job of that. And I'm sure he had to pick and choose what he put in this film, but like There are so many examples. Like even in the Amazon, them finding like little golden planes. I don't know if you've ever seen this. This has been on Ancient Aliens and other kind of meme shows. But they found these like little golden planes with these guys in the driver's seat. And these engineers saw these, and they're a couple thousand years old minimum. It's hard to carbon date these objects, but they took them, right? So this is, mind you, we just started flying planes in what, the mid 1800s. So these planes are a couple thousand years old. These engineers took the planes, made an exact replica of it, scaled it up, put a propeller in the front, it flew. It was completely aerodynamic. So likely, and that's not to take into account too, I mentioned this the other night with this Machu Picchu, I think it was, but the evidence of them carving stone out of the sides of mountains, like precarious mountains that have like 1,000-foot drops in the side of them or more, and then transporting that stone to another mountain that's like, I don't even know, like hundreds of kilometers away, and then placing it there and melting it in place almost. Like we're dealing with, and Graham's very careful not to really get into the ancient alien side of it, because the degree of technology that's required to do a lot of these feats would probably be alien to us. Like it's beyond what we can do today. Like when you deal with those kinds of problems, with that kind of stone building, even like the Giza Plateau, honestly, like a lot of the arguments for how that was constructed by slaves is kind of nonsense, because the size of the ramp you would need to finish off the pyramid would be like astronomically large, right? To walk the stones up, it would like be almost out fucking halfway through Africa to get to walk the fucking ramp up to the top of the Great Pyramid, right? Where you'd be able to physically move the stones up of that weight, even with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people pulling them. So there is an advanced technology present in the ancient past, like, and by advanced, unfortunately, I think it's kind of somewhat obvious. Advanced, i.e., our level or higher. And I would consider some of these examples in South America, it's fucking higher than ours. So, yeah. So whoever built Göbekli Tepe likely was involved with or had influence from these individuals who built these more impressive monuments. And Graham doesn't really touch on that. This is maybe like a little bit more like you get a little bit deeper into the story. I mean, the problem with the story, the deeper you get into it, the deeper you get into the woo. And you can get real deep into it, where there are people saying they remember lives they lived on Atlantis, where they flew around in crystal ships and they talked to fucking like people from other dimensions. And it's like, oh, fucking Christ. Like, you know, you get to that point where it's just like nonsense, but there's definitely a bit farther that you can take it. That, I mean, publicly, could you argue this? I think you could. It's harder to, but Graham definitely stays more within the confines of like just stating that there was definitely someone around. Pre-Diluvian civilization is what they call it, before the flood. And yeah, I think you need, so far, if what I've seen, and I mean, I've kind of skipped, I've seen a little bit from the later episodes. I know his story. I've read through both of his books on this. I haven't read America before, which is to do with North American structures, which nobody really knows a lot about. But yeah, I think he did a pretty good job. It's the second most viewed show on Netflix Canada, I noticed too. So it's really bringing this out.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's bringing this out into the general public, which is good. I mean, a lot of people have heard about Atlantis and stuff, and they kind of know about this stuff. But it's good to get this out into the general sphere. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's so Serpent Mound people are gonna get some angry emails. Let me tell you.
Well, like that kind of stuff is just, yeah, and like one of the episodes I noticed on Wikipedia, he's labeled as a pseudo archaeologist. Like, shut
Yeah.
the fuck up. Like, to people, like, fuck you, Wikipedia. Like, are you idiots? Like, someone just needs to strip them down, like, so bad. Like, he's a journalist. Like, he's just reporting. Like, that's what journalists do now. Does he theorize in some of his books and Fingerprints of the Gods? A little bit. In Magicians of the Gods, he does a bit, but you know, he's writing a book for fuck's sakes, like on this topic. Like he's interested in the topic, but he's a journalist reporting mostly from pretty, you know, decently credentialed people. Like the people he's dealt with on the show, they're professors, you know, they're legitimate experts. They just differ from the mainstream, and that's a problem too with the general public has, like the perception of academia that like, oh, there's just this one authority. It's like, no. Like or there's this consensus, like the climate consensus. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Like in one field, there's like, if you go and read like papers on like archaeological papers, there's fucking thousands and tens of thousands of them from all of these different people, and they all have different opinions. And the people that control the narrative are a couple people who have literally just been around the longest. And then what happens when they die off? Somebody else comes around with a theory that maybe is better, or maybe people at the time think is more captivating, and then that becomes a prevalent theory. And they control a lot of this stuff with peer review too, which is a huge problem. And I'm watching this. Eric Weinstein's a really good person to listen to on peer review and the problem of peer review in academia, and how it creates like this toxic environment that suppresses like alternative ideas. And for fuck's sakes, like any progress we've had have usually been from alternative thinkers pushing back against, you know, a mainstream narrative, which is what Graham has mentioned. And then it's these people just trying to hold on to power. And there's some mainstream narratives that are correct, right? Because as like some skeptics will bring up, it's like, well, you've got to put your ideas through the fire, and right through all the criticism comes out on top. And like in some instances that works, maybe like in engineering that works really well, because things are very blatantly wrong, like mathematically. But when it comes to like more kind of ethereal things like this that aren't like provably like wrong, like mathematically provably wrong, it's, you know, there's more debate that happens. And when you see what happens, like with Graham Hancock at the Serpent Mound, when debate gets shut down over something like as ridiculous as that, like they wouldn't let him in because he is alternative theories. Like he himself bases his theories off of other experts, right? And those experts differed from the experts that control Serpent Mound, and the experts that control Serpent Mound don't want that getting out there because they think it will affect the general public's perception of the mound, you know. But it's just this huge fucking mess. It's hyper specialization. We've talked about this before on our podcast about hyper specialization has just even made like the academic world fucking stupid. Like, it's complicated, but yeah.
Because you don't really have, I mean, like maybe you do, but it's like, as you just said, it's sort of influenced heavily by this sort of main flow of where the academic field is going, regardless. So when you have outliers, there's like, you know, there's criticism that comes initially, but it's such a garrison around that, kind of like keeping the order of ideas, or whatever, pure and sacred to the way that they I assume it's the most rich schools. I don't really know who would be at the top, but you know, and then so we get stuff like the Serpent Mound people saying that Graham Hancock can't come and fucking shoot footage, which is like, he didn't really need it, I think, for that like era. And I get if it's like there's like the tourist problem, like the most likely the tourist element, where it's like we don't want to be lying to tourists to sit down, you know, saying that, oh, Graham Hancock believes this, because we can't like amend our tours every time a person has a different theory about this and that. But I don't know. It's just like it seemed he definitely had. We were talking about talking to Galen there. He's very butthurt about it. I noticed. I could see when he was talking to the person that he was interviewed that there was this like anger that, you know, it wasn't like overt anger, but it's just this subtle like
this vibration
look that he gave him.
Yeah.
Like when he mentioned that like it should be looked into or something, like you get it, just that was like the verbatim or something. And I had to pause it and rewind, and I showed Melissa, I was like, look at that, he wants to stab that guy. And this guy's cooperating. This guy is fucking cooperating with him, and he's just
Yeah,
yeah.
he's definitely a little bit like there was a really good debate that he had with a guy named Michael Shermer on Joe Rogan's podcast, who's like a labeled skeptic, and who very poorly just kind of goes after this topic he knows nothing about. It just appeals to authority the whole time. Like, oh well, they would have known this. It's like, but like that's not how anything fucking works. Like again, like anyway. So, but Graham definitely got way too emotional and kind of just started just attacking him a little bit too much. I don't know. I think he doesn't come from, well, he's a journalist, so he went to university, but maybe he just doesn't understand. Well, I shouldn't say that. We don't understand, probably. I mean, the degree that he has been drugged through the mud. I mean, he did kind of take a beating after Fingerprints of the Gods. Like, they really kind of came after him hard for that because he was a little bit more liberal and he was a little bit more naive, I think, to the degree to which these experts were going to, like, belittle him and put him down. Like, for instance, Atlantis. Like, people who bring up Atlantis always get shit on by academics who are that field's relevant to, archaeologists, etc., because they essentially just view it as a story that Plato made up to like make a point, which he did in a lot of his dialogues. Well, actually, no, he didn't really, but he used just stories in his dialogues to like make a point, and they thought that was just a story he told. But I think again, it's like there's another problem here. We don't really need to get into this right now, but we had touched on this before. I forget what his name is, but that really good article that guy did about the problem in academia, we talked about it a couple podcasts ago. But there's just it's too much almost for a person to know, and like to really understand the depth of this. Even for somebody who's an acclaimed archaeologist, I mean, how you can look at these things and if you're dismissing them, what reasons are you dismissing them for? I mean, it's almost endless, I guess. Like they want to keep their tenure, they want to keep their paycheck going. They love doing the job. They don't want to introduce any doubt into their profession. And the general public just is not going to grasp these kinds of things, and like they're not going to understand like carving out a relief on a Göbekli Tepe fucking pillar, or even building those pillars to begin with 12,000 years ago. They're like, what does that mean? What do you mean 12,000? You're fucking crazy, right? And then that gets out in the general sphere, and that comes back onto a donor at the university, and then he's like, oh, I don't want to work with that guy. He's that guy who thinks the aliens built Göbekli Tepe. And people just kind of but they don't think. They don't fucking think before they speak. They just spew out these ideas, and they don't really think about how does this make sense? Like it just kind of telephone games into this bullshit, and they just repeat that stuff, and then hence it gets to somebody again who was a lot of money who doesn't think, and then they come back and they discredit this person, and then they lose funding, and the university fucking fires them, and they don't have a job anymore, and then they're on welfare, and then they go and they fucking drive their car off a cliff or whatever happens, right? Like, so that's how they're looking at things. Comes back to money, and that pollutes all of this as well. But Graham has been at the spear tip of this fucking nonsense for a long time. Like, 1995, almost 30 years. He's been dealing with this bullshit, right? All this bullshit, and he's a pretty he's drank a lot of ayahuasca. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. But I think what it has done is he's just kind of a very well-read, well-traveled person. And he's not like a specialist in this field. He's a journalist. And what that job entails is taking all of this perspective and boiling it down to like a very digestible bits of information. So even the digestible bits of information he's relayed in this show and his book, his perspective is way broader than that. And that's even someone like Randall Carlson, who isn't like a certified geologist. I think he might have a geology degree. He's an architect and a builder, but he's someone who just has this very broad perspective. Like there are people that's usually what I equate with like philosophers, like philosophically inclined people, usually have perspectives on things and see things the general public does not. The general public doesn't really value that usually, but I mean, society does indirectly from their insights into things. But, it requires such a broad spectrum of knowledge on all of these things to really understand the implications of these structures and what they mean. And it's just not something even you're going to find like if someone who says, or when someone who's trained to be an archaeologist or trained to be a skeptic or mathematician, it's like it takes kind of special people to solve these problems. And Graham Hancock, I think, is one of these special people, although loses his patience with some of these people. But you have to understand why he does, I think.
Yeah.
When like this new guy in the field, the Serpent Mound's like just afraid to say anything else because he doesn't want to lose his fucking job, right? Given tours there. And he's just like, open your fucking eyes. And they won't, right? So it's very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating. But you just have to kind of, I think from where he's coming from, he's just going to, at this point, hope all these old fuckers die off and young people are going to take him, see what he gave. Like they're going to be able to look at it with fresh eyes, which they're doing, like us, honestly, and be like, oh, there's something to that. Like we look at that, you watch the series, I watch it. I followed this for many years now. And I was like, no, there's something fucking to that. Like, I don't care what this guy who claims he's an expert says. Like, there's all kinds of people that claim they're experts at things. And maybe they just sucked a lot of dick to get where they fucking are. It's like, just because you went through the motions to become something doesn't mean you have any kind of, doesn't make your ideas worthy, right? I mean, it makes your ability maybe to interpret the data, more valuable, but like original insights and like to take something else, right? So just because someone's accredited archaeologist who's dug some things up, it's like, that doesn't make you qualified to dismiss this, unfortunately. It's too big of a problem for one person or one group of people to dismiss. And that's kind of what Graham's relayed, I think, with this information, is it's way too big. It requires and the problem with it requires way too many people, really smart, original thinkers to tackle the problem, to really understand it. Hence why he's doing this, because I think he hopes we'll get those people in the next generation that will take the initiative. Well, people that'll fund the money, maybe Elon Musk will fund the money. We'll figure out what happened. We'll figure out who these people were, what technology they had, and maybe the technology is still around somewhere. Or maybe the government has it. It was a problem. We assume there aren't nefarious elements involved with this and that they don't know who these people are and where they came from and what causes the cataclysms and when it comes around again. Who knows? We just assume that they're our friend. Right? Yeah. Anyway.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it sounds like you know. It sounds like you know.
I have an idea.
To quote our friend Galen.
Yeah, I don't think I know, but I have some ideas I could throw out there. But yeah, anyway. Yeah.
No, it was a good watch. Yeah, as I was saying to you, it's like I like to see watching these guys, because from years of listening in chats of I guess like observing your theories on this and the little tidbits of information. I've never had like the full pitch. I've never been really able to put the full picture because it's just pieces and pieces and stuff.
Right.
And then so watching the Graham Hancock thing, I could be like, that's Graham Hancock now, and it's like there's all of his like contributions, and like we talked about Randall Carlson, we had him, so it's like I know his thing now. He's the Atlantis and comment from the Constellations guy and stuff, and
yeah,
so it's like it's all building to like, and they're like top players, so it's like if you see them on, or they're like the all-stars, like the all-star team, you get like Hancock, Carlson, fucking oh, what's his name,
Georgia Tsoukalos.
George Hugo, DeLong, like fucking Greer,
Bob Lazar.
Lazar, there he is. Yeah, Lazar. Yeah, watched one with Lazar there recently. He's the regression guy, past life regression guy.
Oh, Michael Newton's the past.
Newton, Newton. I was thinking Newton. I just don't want to say it because Isaac Newton, I think, but Yeah. Yeah, so it's all formulating the
Yes.
um the woos, the ancient alien all stars or whatever it's they
They're
might
they're the
call
they're
it.
the top tier guys. They're the
Yeah.
guys you can probably go and like they're the guys that a lot of people who are like accredited archaeologists, like experts, will go and probably turn to in this field. Like Randall has a good podcast called Cosmographia. He has very interesting insights. He's a geometrician. He likes like math and ancient history and very interesting insights. I mean, he's a builder, so he uses like geometry a lot, but just some of his insights into even like the Great Pyramid and some of the math, some of the geometry you can apply to that, and some of the things you can get out of that, like the circumference of planet Earth, like it's through some clever multiplication and division using some golden. I think it's called the golden numbers or fuck. I don't know much about math, but
Golden ratio.
golden ratio, yes.
Yeah.
And it's like again stuff like that. It's like a slap in the face. It's like guys, like there's something going on here. Like somebody, and then you can tie in my theories to who they maybe physically were. But I go to places they don't want to go, which is usually to like woo 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 woo, like remote viewing and stuff. But that's kind of where I think that's the next step where we're going to go forward is unfortunately into that, but I think that's how we're going to break through. That like we're on like we've got our hands like on the fucking like glass, like we can't see through the glass right now, but what's going to allow us break through is what's holding us back is our stigma around these kinds of some of these woo phenomena, like psychic phenomena. That's my intuition. Um, but I think that's going to be what pushes us forward into understanding these things further. But that can be saved for another time, I guess. But yeah.
Yes, and in other news this week, we've got fucking WoW, Dragonflight. What is it? It's pre-patch that's up right now? Is that what it's called?
It is the pre-patch is up.
Pre-patch is up.
So we're doing
Again,
that.
they messed up Druid, pissed off. Again, took away my Moonfire buff and my Guardian, maxed out Guardian talent. Now I have to wait till 70 before I can have that again. It's fucking stupid. Freaking stupid, I think.
You gotta wait. You gotta wait, bud. Fucking too much
Yeah.
power right now.
Yeah.
Too
They
much
were
power.
they increased greatly, whatever that means, the Warlords of Draenor's and Mist of Pandaria world boss mount drops. So that's something that everyone can be happy about if you don't have it, and you can cope about it if you do, I guess, because it's gonna be quicker to get.
I think I can hear
Um,
Lakey mountain farming right now. Are you going for mountain
yeah.
farming at this time, right?
Nah.
I can see the reflection of that in those glasses. Hear
You
that
see it?
clicking. I gotta hear that click clacking.
Maybe doing a little BFA
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Just gotta get, I gotta get her fucking keep her up to date, get all the
Fuck
stuff
that.
done here. I don't know if I'll ever 100% this game. There's like too much really
That's,
to
that will
to
be a
do.
life-ending achievement at this point. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll
I saw
be.
Annie Fuchsia got 100%. She's that like British one. She's like the British Asmongold except a female, and that's like
Right.
I want to say anything bad about her, but it's
What that
I
implies, I
don't
guess.
I don't watch, but I assume it's just oh girl who plays WoW. But
Yeah.
anyways, fucking
Yes, sir.
100%. So that's something. That's an achievement. So there's where the value in that streamer lies.
Now we
Dedication.
can play the game. We can
Now,
finally
now she
play
can finally. I wish to see just comments of like videos. Like if I ever get like 100% fucking like
Yeah.
WoW stream like video and I post it, I want all the comments to just be like, now you can play the game. Now you can
Now
play
you
the
can play
game.
All these Zoomers don't get that reference.
You know.
Yeah.
Now we can play the game.
Yeah.
Now we can finally play the game. As a South Park reference to Make Love Not Warcraft.
Yes.
That's a great episode. That's a top tier South Park episode, I'd
That's
have
what
to
made
say.
me actually the man that is in this chat right now is the one who made me play this game, and what made me want like go through with playing it was I watched the Make Love Not Warcraft episode. It came out in summer 2007, I think, or something like that. I remember I watched it and I thought it was so fucking funny that I was like, I gotta try this game at least. And here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are, 15 years later. Dear
Yeah.
Jesus, yeah. But yeah. But
Yes.
yeah, well, I guess
Dragonflight.
yeah, well,
18
Dragonflight's coming.
years.
What we'll have to do, we'll probably do as we wrap this podcast up. We'll probably do one on Dragonflight, or honestly, we might even we'll probably let's stream the release of it on here. We might
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. Yeah, we'll
Oh,
stream the release of Dragonflight. We'll get both of our webcams up. Maybe we'll get me in the background or Leaky in the back. Well, we'll have to be my gameplay actually, because yeah, Leaky won't be able to get your gameplay. But you'll be there with me leveling. So we'll stream the Dragonflight launch here. So that will be 2 weeks from Monday. So yeah, the 28th of November. So
Yes.
that'll be what we'll do. But yeah, I don't know. Any closing thoughts, I guess, Leaky, on this? Yeah.
I mean, speaking of streaming and stuff, I think I'm gonna be streaming. I mean, I say I think. I shouldn't say I think, because that's just like this reluctance. But I'm planning to make more time for streaming Dragonflight. I don't know if we'll be doing like dailies or second days or like what kind of schedule or whatever. Because I mean, we've all seen how my schedule with the Dungeon Master thing, where it's just whenever I fucking thought, yeah, 2 weeks go by, whatever, one stream in 2 weeks. But trying to get we'll try to get some consistent streams going. Hopefully the internet doesn't start effing around like last time we had that tropical storm and I was out. Rogers was out, kicked me the fuck
Yeah.
out. Yeah. And then what else is new? Dragonflight will take priority to any like Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that will be going on, but like that should be coming up fairly soon in the Discord. So anyone watching this in the Discord who was interested, or I don't think there's anyone here because like we're only on 3 viewers, but you know, I'll be getting at people to see who's gonna be down for some adventures and that.
Yeah, we'll try and get sponsored. We need to fucking work on getting sponsored.
That'd be very nice, yeah.
Tell them we're great Twitch streamers, and we'll get some sponsor streams or something here. But
I wonder.
we'll
I should message the D&D TikTok people and see like if I can befriend one or just like pick their brains or something,
should
or follow at the very least or something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because there's tons of like stuff that we could probably promote, get a couple bucks on the side. Like I'm sure there's some guys out there, some
networking, bud.
yeah, some
gotta
like Wizards of the
network.
Coast
That's
has
the
got
problem.
something. Wizards of the Coast is trying to sell you something. We're trying to sell that to you for them. Is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, D&D will do a magic. Listen, send us a couple boxes and MTG. We'll do some MTG openings. There you
Oh,
go.
that would be Casual Cats case cracks. Oh, you
Oh
fucking
my
kidding?
god! Bud, here we get some ideas here. Anyway, we're
Casual Cats case crackers.
yeah, we're gonna brainstorm some shit tomorrow. That's what we're gonna fucking do. I'll get up tomorrow morning, get my coffee. We'll brainstorm some shit. So, anyway, all right. Well, everybody, thank you for
Yes.
tuning in again to
Thank you
this.
again.
And